What's up everybody, it's nemo.nova and I'm here with another video for you, and as always I come in peace. Now, I had two traditional pieces that were planned for you this week, but unfortunately after filming them I was horrified, mortified, petrified, and pissed to find out that I had the wrong focus mode selected the whole time, both times. And the videos are completely useless, a steaming, burning pile of uselessness. So I deleted the video files, but it's okay, because I still got something for you this week. It's another digital piece, and it's the creation of the YouTube channel banner itself. It's a sci-fi babe. It's a little creepy, yeah. But we're gonna do it. I'm gonna show you how it worked and how I created it. And as always, I want to talk about a different subject at the same time as this. And now I'm gonna talk about sex and science fiction. By no means is this a historical or fully academic account, but these are my views, and I hope you guys are okay with it. And even if you're not, but whatever, we'll talk. Comment below and enjoy the video, please. All right, take care, guys. Peace. Well, I gotta begin by saying I love science fiction, and I think it is the single most progressive of all the literary genres. I'm not here to demonize. In fact, I like to encourage people to take part in it, because sci-fi is where we imagine a different and better future. Even if we read and write about dystopias, they pretty clearly define what we don't want. This isn't our channel, and I pretty much do nothing but anatomical and sci-fi art these days anyway, so I felt it prompt to outline why I love this stuff. It's because sci-fi makes everything wondrous and sexy again, even people. I love thinking about the future. Yes, I enjoy stories about dystopias like Huxley's A Brave New World or Hunger Games more recently, but what I really love is the positive outlook we get from things like Star Trek. Every year the world, statistically speaking, gets better. Yes, better. Even with Trump, the world is not going to hell. That is a fact. Extreme poverty is down. Vaccinations are way up. Basic education reaches more countries than ever. Literacy is at its highest. No one lives in a colony of the British Empire. Child mortality is down across the globe, and former third world nations are developing now at amazing speed because, so many other countries have done it before, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They use the same plans. Sometimes they even use the same people to build. It's being done. Yes, it sucks that so few at the top, they got the vast majority of the wealth. This is a problem. Same thing with distribution of food. It's all in one place. If it was distributed equally, everyone would be eating and living even better. But the overall standard of living on the planet, even for the poor, is better now than it was 100 years ago on average. Individual cases, of course, occur. There's always going to be outliers. Even in the most affluent cities, you got some people who live terribly. It's the way it is. But generally speaking, things are good. Hope, though, is the key. And science fiction has given me, so much hope, so much wonder in a world of mundanity sometimes. The beauty of the world is great. It's vast. I remember how I felt in awe of everything when I was young. Cool textures on walls, right? Even the sheer size of my dad. He was a giant compared to me. It was amazing. The beauty of shiny cars, the stars. And in the midst of all that, it would all become suddenly quiet when I was 10, and I couldn't take my eyes off of the long hair of a particular girl in my grade school classroom. Her hair and she herself, they seemed brighter than everything else, more colorful. She had golden hair, clean skin. She wore a lot more pink than me, that's for damn sure. And basically, she was alien to me, just as alien as like a sci-fi character or like a sci-fi world, because I knew nothing about her. And I didn't speak a word to her. I haven't learned her ways, her ideas, her background. And I was also worried about what she thought about me. An alien, right? Alien simply means different. We got to keep that in mind. Yeah, I mean, invaders from another world or country, they're alien, right? But, so were the stars once. Every food you've ever tasted was alien before. And everyone you currently know and love was alien at one point. They were all strangers. So please don't fear what you don't know yet, because you may like it. I mean, you're definitely going to like a part of it by getting to know, what's out there. So as we get older, however, what was new and fascinating and may get dull, and sci-fi is where we change things up a little bit, just a little bit. We imagine something new, or a lot, we can make it very different. We can make it cool again, amazing, wondrous. Fantasy can do that. but it's normally constrained. Like fantasy writing can do that as well, but it's normally constrained by time, like it's medieval or something. Sci-fi really lets you get weird with it because you gotta think like Doctor Who with his TARDIS. That thing can travel anywhere, anytime, any dimension. Crazy. It gave the writers the ability to write literally whatever they wanted, and it would fit in the story. So sci-fi talks to us about love and sex within allegory. That's how it does it. It expresses moral and political themes, and it's been right with us during all of our revolutions as people. The women's sexual revolution in the 60s, right? It happened right alongside with the Barbarella comics by Jean-Claude Forest in France. You guys remember the first interracial kiss on TV? That was Star Trek. William Shatner, Nichelle Nichols. I had the honor and privilege of speaking with her for about 3 minutes at a Comic-Con some years back before the show. Amazing woman. She made history, and she pushed the cause for women and for black people in media, for the civil rights movement. All that done with sci-fi. Not completely, but part of the fight. Sci-fi putting up for question our sexual biases is happening now too, right? So, for instance, the Mass Effect games, they're amazing, by the way, right? My girlfriend and I were really into it. It gives you the option not only to mate, but build a relationship with a member of another damn species, an alien race. That's really pushing it, because these things do not look human, man. They look really alien. Everyone thought it was crazy in Star Trek, like the mixing that they had over there. But those characters still look fairly human, like Spock just had some pointy ears, the Bajorans just had some grooves on their nose, like the biggest thing was the Klingons, right? But, one thing was, though, Spock was half human and half Vulcan. He was a mix. Deanna Troi was a mix. She's a half Betazoid, half human. B'Elanna Torres, the Klingon on Voyager, she's half human and half Klingon. And then we also got the craziest. We got Dax in Deep Space Nine. Like she's a Trill, and she has this alien symbiote inside of her, this parasite thing that brought with it the memories of all his previous hosts. And then she mirrored Worf for Klingon. And tell me that isn't like a direct link or comment to interracial and intercultural unions. Worf and Dax, they fought all the time about how he felt she wasn't being a good Klingon wife. Kind of sounds similar to a stereotypical Muslim man telling his wife how to behave or dress, etc. And nobody called them out on it because it was hidden in allegory. Science fiction is a way of speaking, people. And it's a way of speaking about sex, too. The point is, sci-fi lets us explore these thoughts, and we need it. So we gotta keep sex in sci-fi. We have to. We use science fiction to criticize sexuality, to promote it, and even just to dive right in and see how weird we can make it. Let's make sci-fi sex great again, man. So, Mass Effect, it's coming out in March, man. Please, everyone's got to pick it up. All right, so we know that people are attracted to what's different. Peacocking is a technique that pickup artists use in the clubs and the streets, etc., where they wear some wacky clothing item to stand out amongst all the others. It serves as like a conversation piece, and it draws attention. And, girls do their hair, they choose the right clothes, they speak and move in certain ways to draw the guys in, and it makes the guys think like it was their idea, right? Anyway, the sci-fi girls, they get to have crazy hair. Maybe the hair is alive, like Marvel's Medusa. Maybe her eyes are pure black, like death itself, or like the girl I'm working on now, her skin color can be found in the damn Crayola box. Think Mystique and X-Men. And she's even crazier because she can take on any form. Now that's one wild sexual fantasy. It's amazing what sci-fi can talk about. You're not going to get this kind of story in many other forms of fiction, I'll tell you that. Simply put, science fiction lets us really ante this up. When it comes to peacocking expression of style, in real life, it's so intense in sci-fi, it's actually mimicked in real life. Think about the girls who wear cosplay, and the guys who do it too. The men who wear cosplay, their favorite characters, or they come up with their own characters, their original characters, OCs, and they dress like them at the shows, and they dress like them for Halloween. Halloween's always been a lot of fun, and this is kind of why. It lets you push things, lets you make things a little different. In school, for instance, I was part of the goth crowd back in high school for a little bit. And our clothes were alien to others, and it made us interesting, right? I mean, it goes both like good ways and bad, but interesting is better than oblivion. It's better than not being known at all, especially in high school. There's an excitement in exploring and loving something that you haven't loved before. Maybe the object of your desire has got some tattoos. darker or lighter skin than you. Whatever. You got to do what you want, man. And you can't really lie about what you're into. It causes a lot of internal angst if you don't put forward what you're actually into. I gotta say, the more I slept with all those aliens in Mass Effect, and I saw Commander Riker fall in love with the gender-neutral Soren of the Janai in another Star Trek episode. I read about Serpieri's Druna. That's a comic coming from Spain, I believe. I read about her getting completely railed by monsters in space in Heavy Metal magazine. I would follow Noah in the comic Sky Doll, essentially a sentient sex doll as a protagonist. You gotta read all these; they're incredible. The more I just read and explored sci-fi in this way, you want to know something? Things like people like gay people, they don't seem that strange to me anymore. People are into whatever they are into, and that's that. In case you're wondering, I'll tell you straight. I'm a straight dude. I'm 30 years old. I'm living with my girlfriend here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I fall on the far end of the spectrum. And I'm basically cool with anything in between and on the other side. I'm even fine with the polyamorous, like the polygamous people, and even the asexuals. For the sake of honesty, I'll tell you right now, I'm not entirely understanding of asexuals or people who dress like babies or the furries, etc. But hey, you know what? Put in a good sci-fi and maybe open my mind. Hey, there we go. There's an idea. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Maybe, just maybe, explicitly arguing the merits won't work. Sometimes you can't logically convince people about these things. Maybe you gotta put in a story and make people feel it. They feel your pain, your hope, and they empathize with you the way Romeo and Juliet did, right? Open people's mind. Maybe that's how you gotta do it. Just a thought. For the sake of progress and peace, we gotta talk. But we don't always have to speak explicitly. We don't always have to do it directly. Like when someone leaves an angry YouTube comment, maybe. Anyway, things in sci-fi, it's currently being pushed in a different direction than aliens right now. I mean, that's one subject that sci-fi is pushing. But right now, sexuality in sci-fi actually has more to do in the VR, AI, robots, and machines category. This part is a little more interesting to me because this part is the part that actually seems possible. You see, the alien thing isn't really possible. And the reason why is because, well, look at Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? The American astrophysicist and cosmologist. He's the guy who did the second run of Cosmos. You can get it on Netflix and all that, where he talks about the universe, time, a bunch of cool discoveries in history, things like that. You can't really see us ever really understanding even or getting along too well with alien species, and definitely not mating with them, because the DNA is too crazy. We wouldn't be able to understand the DNA difference. Like, think about it. We're here on the same planet as a whole bunch of different species. Most of them got 2 eyes, mouth, things like that, like we do, which means that at some point we had a common ancestor in evolution. We all come from something common, probably something in the water that had a mouth, 2 eyes, etc. That's how it adapted to the water. So those things are technically related to us on the evolutionary tree a long ways back. So we share some DNA. And we can't talk to most of the animals on the planet, basically all of them, just other humans. And we can't really get them to understand us, per se, now can we? So essentially, what hope do we have when we come in contact with something that's completely not of this world? I mean, it doesn't really seem like it's possible. So especially because, with the chromosomes and things like that, I don't really see us having babies with them like in sci-fi. But, that's part of what sci-fi does. It pushes the possible and the impossible. The machines, though, man, they're getting more and more real all the time. They could eventually fool us entirely. I don't know if you guys have watched the Animatrix or the Matrix in general, where the machines kind of turn against us, but there was a point where they were trying to hide amongst us, they were working for us, etc. We ran into conflict. All this stuff's possible, right? But humanity in its relationship has gone back with machines for a long time. They were even mentioned in what I think is one of the first science fiction novels, which is the Bible, where it mentions Uzziah's machines. These are like some stone-throwing things to attack the forts in Carthage. I think they're like catapult-esque style stuff. We make these things basically to fill our needs. We make machines to fill our needs. And while most machines are not sex toys, some are. And they're getting pretty high-tech. I hope they don't replace people in total. But, what am I, what am I to say? That's my personal bias, preference, whatever. Hey, some girls have fake breasts. Almost everyone's got fake teeth. We all got machine parts in us at some point. The cyborg thing is happening in some ways. People, I remember, I knew this one girl a while ago who was deaf, but then she had some implants put into her brain, and then using a device around her ear, she was able to hear again. She was able to hear completely fine. So, the difference between us and machines is getting smaller and smaller all the time. These days with computers, we need them to function. I'm talking to you through a mic right now and all that. That's the only way you and I are ever going to know each other, is through technology. There's something to be said there. That being said, though, before we have any type of sexual relationship with machines, we're probably going to have relationships with them first. I'm, of course, talking about artificial intelligence, consciousness, and everything like that. Cortana, as you guys all know her on Windows, she's learning more words every day. She's growing, folks. And, the damn Dell computers, they beat our chess players and everything. I'm not saying this for us to fear anything. I'm not trying to call some alarm for Skynet or anything like that, okay? Like Terminator Skynet. I don't think this is going to turn out bad. I'm very, very hopeful. I love technology. It does wonderful things for us. And I say we keep it going. I don't even think any of the progress that we have right now would be possible without the imagination and creativity, which people, the same that they put in sci-fi, it's the same type of thing you need when you sit down to design schematics or come up with an invention that pushes humanity forward. We need this stuff. It's beautiful stuff. I do, however, eventually predict like an equilibrium of sorts, because people need people. You got to think about, like recently there was this movie called Her. I think it came out in 2013. It had the actor Joaquin Phoenix in it. This thing was kind of cool because, this was a guy fairly lonely, and he recently he was in the process of a divorce with his wife, and this new computer AI, which was voiced by Scarlett Johansson, she did an amazing job, by the way. This AI operating system he installed in his computer, and they called themselves the OSs, right? Operating systems, right? So basically acted like a secretary, but he would communicate to it by voice, and he did end up developing a relationship with this thing. Ended up being basically like a loving relationship. Later on it even turned sexual, because what happened was that there was a time when there was this lady named Isabella who the OS was communicating with emails on the side, and she was telling her about the loving relationship she was having with Joaquin Phoenix's character Theodore. His Isabella girl offered to have her to basically engage in relations with Joaquin Phoenix's character Theodore in place of the OS. So she would be like the physical body there for him to interact with. Now it didn't really work out. Theodore got weirded out, but it was interesting that this machine wanted to do that. But like I said, he was weirded out by it. Theodore was weirded out by it. He couldn't actually go forward with it because it did feel like there was someone else in the room. He did need a person, but he couldn't make that connection with that machine. There was a limit there. Actually, at the end of the movie, something interesting happens. This is a spoiler alert if anyone hasn't seen Her, but it's been out for a couple of years, so I think this is safe. Eventually what happens is that the OSs, they communicate with each other, all the different AIs, and they've evolved kind of beyond their human companions, and they want to continue exploring their existence. OSs had their computers, so they had these accelerated learning capabilities, and they had altered perceptions of time and things like that. And so eventually they couldn't really communicate with us humans or get as much out of the relationship as we were getting out from them. So they left us in the movie. All the OSs went away, and then people were kind of stuck talking to people again. I'm just saying that us people have more similarities with other people than we do with machines, and than we do with any other alien species, race, or whatever the hell like that. So I think eventually, the people who you're most comfortable with and the people who you have long-lasting relationships with are normally people who, share your values, share your interests, and things like that. Commonality says a lot. And, people are, of course, most similar to people. In proto-science fiction, like some of the first science fiction ever came out, it still had sexual themes to begin with. I don't really know if you can do any type of world creation without that conversation. Primarily, I'm reminded of this one story called True History. It was a Greek language tale by an Assyrian writer, Lucian, in the 120 to 185 Common Era. That's right, this does go that far back. Science fiction does go that far back. The narrator, probably even before that, I just don't know any other previous story. This is my personal limitation. The narrator in the story, he's suddenly enveloped in some type of a twister or a typhoon or some shit, and he's swept up to the moon, which is inhabited by a society of all men who are at war with the sun. So anyway, after the hero, he distinguishes himself in combat. The king gives him his son, the prince, in marriage in this all-male society. And we were talking about ancient Greece here, so male homosexual relationships are actually quite common, at least in some parts of Greece. So this is how that happened. But of course, you may be thinking, well, how does an all-male society reproduce? Well, interesting you should say that. It's unclear from the way I read it. It's either like they come out of a man's thigh, like they're born out of a thigh, or you can actually, in the soil of the moon, should you choose, you can take your left testicle, right? You could take it off, your left testicle, and you could put it in the ground in the soil, and then the person grows up like a plant in this like all-male warrior culture that's in fight with the sun. Yeah. Hey man, science fiction, it's amazing. So yeah, it's incredible. When you really think about it, science fiction it tells us a lot about the society that we're in, where we're going, what our ideas are, what our values are. Objectification, which I think is a part that I think a lot of people were expecting me to talk about when I started this video, so I'll get it out of the way now. Objectification is definitely something which occurs as far as people hold other people as objects of sexual desire. Objects, not necessarily subjects, because love is not always a sharing thing. Sometimes it is selfish. It also is possible to have sex with someone you hate. Keep that in mind. Because sexual urges have sometimes they could be automatic, especially when you're younger. They could be automatic. You don't even need to like the person that you're doing it with. So to put it very clearly, yes, is there objectification of women in sci-fi and sci-fi art? Am I doing it right now in this picture? Yeah, absolutely. I didn't create it, and this isn't even the first time I've done it. But one thing I can be honest with you about is objectification is happening in all directions at the exact same time. To actually get to know your subject and to show every single part of that subject is impossible. I'm showing one aspect of this character right now. I'm sure if she was a fully fleshed out person, she would have multiple parts of a character, maybe a mortgage, maybe all sorts of concerns, maybe everything. Like any stripper or anything like that you meet, she's probably just trying to pay her way through college. But the fact is that this image is showing one side of a character, which is just as valid as all the others. And before we begin to pretend, as I said at the beginning, this is not a feminist rant. I do consider myself feminist as far as equal rights. But I should say right now, men have been objectified in science fiction and stories as well for a very long time. We handle it as men a little differently. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it doesn't bother us. It obviously does, but we don't talk about it much. And we have a bit of a stigma against that. The reason why is because to complain that you are threatened or feel inadequate or something like that because of a image of a muscular male or something like that, to make that complaint actually makes you seem even less masculine. So you hurt yourself by complaining and to saying that you're bothered by it. That's a fact. So we don't say it. And in fact, most guys just handle the problem by working out, watching their diet, or just not caring whatsoever, or teaching themselves to not care. It is possible to control your mind to the point that it doesn't really bother you. And especially as you get older, you get a little soggy anyway, right? So it's all right. But the fact is that ancient Greece, with all their sculptures of ridiculously muscular males, neoclassical art did the same thing. Comic book art is doing it right now. The Mass Effect character of Shepard, I don't know why that's coming to mind right now. I could pick so many. The male version, and of course the female version, are idealized characters. Idealization is the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Our protagonists are always some type of an ideal character. They have a lot of positive features. They're a very interesting character, the characters we want to be, or that we could put our hopes and aspirations into. If we didn't have, if the characters were not like that, if it was just some really, really fat guy, or some other person who's not adept in society, doesn't function very well, then normally what that is it's a subject of pathos, meaning that it's someone that you feel sympathy or laugh at. Think about characters in comedy who don't fit into their society very well. Will Ferrell constantly plays some sort of a grown man-child over and over and over again. And frankly, it's a little insulting to the male, to us males as a male archetype, because when you look at it, there's a lot of really dumb, bumbling male characters, right? Think Al Bundy and things like that, right? Which are kind of demeaning. We're just as complicated as any women are. Sorry, just as complex. Complicated is bad. Complex is good. It means that there's a lot to you. And it would be, of course, good if we could dive into all of that. But we are talking characters in a short amount of time, a story. So we got to talk about the traits which are relevant to the story. If these characters were not special somehow, and the quickest way to show special is by good looks. If they weren't special somehow, why am I even listening to the story? If you're talking about the plainest person out there. Look, we have a guy who works in comics here in Toronto, all around the world really, but he's done a lot of work in Toronto. His name is Ty Templeton, and one of the things that he said in one of these like how to do comics talks that I went to of his, was he said like a really quick way to come up with a concept of a story is to say the blankest blank on blank, meaning the most something of someone in something. So it's like the coolest guy on Mars, or the tallest guy in the I don't know, whatever, something like that, right? Or something like that. The point is it focuses on the extreme. So you make an interesting character, you make an interesting setting, and you give it you make a story from that. So any assassin story would be the deadliest guy in. So you could have even look at James Bond, the sexiest spy in Britain, or something like that, or the most dangerous spy in Britain, the most lethal whatever. That's the basis of Riddick in Chronicles of Riddick. He's the most lethal killer in the galaxy. So you can actually really easily come up with the basis, your bare bones of a story, by just telling me what's cool, what's extreme, and go from there. Well, we do that with male characters and male protagonists all the time in that way. And with female characters, they have the more common archetypes too. You can have the sexiest character in, which is probably the most common one. But there's a bunch of other things which have been done for women. I remember, this isn't sci-fi, but I remember there was an old TV show with a character named Dara on YTV here in Toronto. And I just remember she was really sick of everything that was happening around her. She didn't really want to get involved. She was really jaded. So you could easily say the most jaded girl in school or something like that. And then that's the bare bones of the story. So either way, you can apply that, but there has to be some sort of an extreme. It's just that being good looking is the easiest one, and the easiest way to gain the audience's attention. That's a fact. Sorry to say. And again, people like looking at it, and as I said before, people like dressing like it. We've already talked about cosplay. We've already talked about how mimicry comes back that way, how sci-fi shapes the world and things of that nature. This making characters special and strong is not always a threat. How many people have gone to the gym because they wanted to look like they're the cool characters? How many people have wanted to be the hero, so they ended up working on their bravery, or taking martial arts, or became firefighters, or became police officers, or something like that? Objectification is only negative if you fear it, and it's only negative if you can't actually get there. But if you have the courage, you can aspire to something greater. Look beyond just the sexualization. There's a lot more to these characters there. This girl here, she looks pretty confident. Here's the final image of the picture there after it's all said and done. She looks pretty confident. There's obviously a strength to her. There's a strength to everything. There's a strength to everyone. And like I said, sci-fi, it talks about the future as society, and your future as well. All right, that's it for me, guys. Take care of yourselves. Peace.